So when we talk about modular nature, what we have done is the building blocks for EAE is GDAL, which is your Geospatial Data Abstraction Library, which helps us to identify for mapping of raster and vector data format, and it helps us to translate. Then what we are using is we are using Postgres SQL as a database, which allows us to show the data and associations, logistics.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Geospatially Africa podcast, the podcast for the African geospatial community. My name is Opeyemi, and today I have here with me Akansha Saklani. Akansha is a GIS analyst with the World Resources Institute. And for those of us that don't already know, the World Resources Institute is one of the foremost organizations helping governments, companies, and individuals in their strive towards sustainable use and management of natural resources. So in today's episode, we'll be talking with Saklani about the use and application of GIS and geospatial technologies to energy access mapping or energy needs assessment, basically. And for those of us that have been here for a while, that I always say that GIS is all encompassing and can be applied in any and every sector. So we've talked a whole lot about other humanitarian sectors and all, but now we want to talk about how Akansha and her team are optimally applying geospatial technologies to assessing energy needs the world over. Now, thank you so much, Akansha, for being here with us. We are very pleased to have you, and our listeners, of course, are very pleased to hear you today. So please, would you just introduce yourself?
Thank you, Opemi, for having me here. I'm Akansha. I'm working as a manager in the energy team at the World Resources Institute. So I started my education with bachelor's in technology, and during my internship with Indian Space Research Organization, I got an understanding of geospatial data. And that understanding was very great because it expanded my knowledge of understanding from what and how to include where as well in it. And where becomes very important, as we know. And that is all about geospatial.
Okay. So about yourself and your using the Energy Access Explorer, because that's basically what we're going to be talking about today. It's a very cool tool that you developed with your team, and we really want to know much about that. So basically, how is geospatial being applied in energy distribution?
So, geospatial data and analytics is an integral part of the energy sphere. Location of power plants, distribution networks allows for efficient planning of energy distribution system. Understanding of the wind power potential or global horizontal irradiance allows users to understand what kind of renewable energy is feasible. So all in all, if we have energy data and we have demand, it also allows you to understand what is the supply, what is the demand, so that it can be a evidence based decision, or a supply is catering to where demand is, not in the opposite direction. And for the Energy Access Explorer, geospatial data analysis plays a very important role as it allows user to visualize the energy supply in terms of physical infrastructure present and the renewable energy potential.
Okay, perfect. So from what you're saying now, I think I understand the fact that you use GIS and geospatial technology and data to access the location of energy infrastructure, and then to be able to know where they are enough or where they are not enough for companies and governments to plan more towards that sector. Am I right?
Right. And we can also say that this is infrastructure, but now, the world is moving towards renewables, and we say, clean energy and sustainable energy for all. And one of the biggest renewable is solar power. So if we have to put a solar power plant system, even a rooftop solar plant, so it's very important to know what is the global horizontal irradiance, which tells you what is the amount of solar radiation coming on the earth, which impacts the system of PVs, the PV system size and the efficiency of the systems. So having a value of GHI will also help you to identify which is the right place to put what kind of a system, because if you have a high coastline and if you know that wind speed is good, you can always think of a small wind turbine. You can think of a solar PV system if it is the yearly GHI value is more than 1650 per unit.
Okay, so also apart from the infrastructure, GIS also helps us to understand, because an understanding of what type of energy, a particular part of the earth receives more would inform what type of renewable energy that area should focus on. For example, other some countries get more sunlight than wind energy, so you would advise such countries to focus more on solar energy type investment. So I think that's what I understand from what you just said.
Right, that's
All
correct.
right. That's perfect. That's one of the major reasons why most countries should really look to geospatial technologies and even remote sensing to advise on their energy management and so basically to consult companies like yours to come and help them plan how to invest in renewable energy basically.
Right.
All right. Yeah. So okay, so then I want to just go jump right ahead into the Energy Access Explorer. Like I came across it when you introduced it to me, and I just thought it was such an amazing tool that could, like you said, can be deployed anywhere and everywhere. Can you talk more about that and maybe what bred you focusing on that? What started it out?
Thank you for praising the Energy Access Explorer. It really, boosts our confidence. So, Energy Access Explorer, if I say, it's an online open source interactive geospatial platform that, provides opportunity to visualize health, energy, education indicators and aid in decision making to accelerate the development of a place or a state or geography. So the platform aids variety of stakeholders, those working in energy sector, healthcare, education, development organization, as well as social investors and donors. EAE or Energy Access Explorer provides additional demand side data to inform supply side decision making. Basically, it's putting demand and supply in a single platform so that users can visualize and understand what is the demand, what is the supply, and planning. And when we talk about planning for energy access, it should be demand driven, informed by nuanced settlement characteristics such as resource availability, socioeconomic indicators. And this is where EAE becomes relevant because EAE has this data with it.
Okay, so from what you said now, you mean that EAE, apart from mapping or mapping energy needs, also has the socio-economic part of it. So not only what parts of the earth get what type of energy, but also the people and the infrastructures in that part and the type of energy that they would need, the amount, so that you know if energy planning will be well informed and basically holistic. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay, okay, perfect. So basically, from what I understand now, the Energy Access Explorer is an open source platform. So any and everybody can go there and see the energy needs of their part of the world. Is it a global platform or it's just across a few countries for now?
So, Energy Access Explorer, the way Energy Access Explorer is conceptualized is for the countries which are energy poor and which are, facing energy power outages or they don't have access to electricity there. So, I would say that this is a global platform, but this platform is not deployed for all the countries. For us, the main aim of deploying a platform to any country is where it has the need. If the country doesn't have a need for a platform like Energy Access Explorer, then we would rather than focus on the countries which need it, so that efforts are used and our partners and stakeholders are able to use the efforts which we have done. So right now we are focusing on sub-Saharan Africa and Indian geographies.
All right, perfect. Because as you said, where there is need for it, what came to mind is my country, Nigeria, definitely has a need for it, and even some other sub-Saharan African countries. So I'm very happy that you said something about sub-Saharan African countries. What sub-Saharan African countries has the platform been deployed to?
So the platform has for Uganda, Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya, and at the moment, and then we have for Zambia also, and then we are moving in Sierra Leone, and we are trying to expand to few more countries.
All right, and hopefully Nigeria soon. Yeah.
Yes, Nigeria is there.
Okay.
Actually, Nigeria is there, and Nigeria we are working under A staff,
Okay. Perfect.
under Africa Clean Energy Program, technical assistance,
All right.
and
All
we have
right.
Malawi and Senegal also.
Okay. Okay. Very soon, I think there'll be a coverage, a total coverage for most sub-Saharan countries, African countries, definitely. Yeah. Very soon. Okay, so
Yes.
yeah. So can we just talk more a bit about the geospatial tools and data sources that informed the Energy Access Explorer? Because here we try to accentuate the geospatial in anything that we talk about. So I know that definitely the EAE is informed by geospatial technologies. So would you be amenable enough to talk about some of the tools, geospatial tools and data sources that informed the EAE?
Right. So, when we talk about geospatial tool, let me first tell that EAE is a modular geospatial platform. So, which means it is completely customizable according to the geography, thanks to its modular nature. So, when we talk about modular nature, what we have done is the building blocks for EAE is GDAL, which is your Geospatial Data Abstraction Library, which helps us to identify for mapping of raster and vector data format, and it helps us to translate. Then what we are using is we are using Postgres SQL as a database, which allows us to store the data and associations, logistics. We have used Postgres REST for a API interface, which allows users to have the data, pull the data from the cloud and put it out in authentic mechanisms and use it. And we are using Amazon S3 server for the base map. What we have done, we have used Mapbox dataset. So this is the base about the geospatial tools which we are using. When it comes to the data sources are different according to the geographies, but we do have some of the common data sets. Like if I talk about infrastructure data, we do have road network data. We have the data on population density, because population is also population helps us to identify the demand of the area. We have got so all of this data set which I'm talking about is open source data which we have gotten through different uh, websites and web portals, and we are using this data set. So the data set is present there in the system, and we have a metadata which tells also the source of the data set, and from where we have received the data and what is the data license agreement. So in supply, we talk about global horizontal irradiance, we talk about wind speed, we talk about hydropower potential for small scale. We only use for small scale hydropower potential which is less than 25 megawatt, because if it goes for more than 25 megawatt, we also need to check for environment sustainability there. And when we talk about infrastructure, mostly the data set which we are looking is the location of power plants, the transmission lines, what is the accessibility to the cities, how much time does it take to reach to the major city, what is the distribution line, what is the distribution substations. So this is the data set which is energy data set. But then we also have data set in the terms of cropland, protected area, financial institutions. What is province data on terms of bioenergy available in terms of manure. And so when I said we are using protected area, we always use a buffer to remove the protected areas, because generally protected areas are the ones which cannot be used for any kind of development, and that they have to be protected environmentally.
Okay, so from what you said now, I see that the EAE is a truly holistic, very holistic platform, in the sense that it really covers a whole lot of, apart from the energy needs and energy supply, also a lot of the human infrastructure and the human and socioeconomic aspects of that area. And the fact that it's open source, I think, is really, really important and is really commendable, because these days such information is integral to planning energy needs, especially in this part of the world. And we know that funding here is not as good as maybe in more developed areas. So the fact that it's open source, enables it to be deployed in even some of the poorest areas of the world. And I really need to thank you and your team for doing that for the rest of the world. Thank you so much for that. I'm so excited about this platform, and I can't wait for it to get to even us here so that we can really use it to plan and even improve our energy supply in this part of the world. So thank you so much, Akansha, for that.
Thank you.
Okay, then. So let's just go ahead into the methodology, because you already explained a lot about what goes into the EAE, but then you also said something about there's something about multi-criteria analysis. So I'm assuming that with all these parameters that you already mentioned, the data sources and data sets that you have, you use a form of multi-criteria analysis to basically assess everything and come to a conclusion or a result. Is this right?
Right. So that's completely correct. So one of the main functions of Energy Access Explorer is multi-criteria analysis to identify areas of interest to expand energy access. So our multi-criteria analysis produces four indices. One of them is energy access potential, then there's demand index, then there's supply index, and the need for assistance index. So what we have done is to develop these indices, we have placed all the indicators on a comparable scale. The platform has availability of simple linear and logarithmic transformation. Then the data sets are normalized from a scale of 0 to 1 according to the threshold. The threshold are determined using different methods like correlations, literature review, and we have had a lot of stakeholder expert consultation, so that we know, since we don't come exactly from all the spheres, so we understand. And then we have also given it as a customization in the content management system, so that the platform administrator can customize it. What we do is we also take distance raster, which are inverted to create proximity rasters, so that we know how far a place is in terms of another place. So so if it is the proximity raster says 0, it means the indicators are not very far away from that point. It's like the same point, and as they go, the distance increases. Then the process data set goes into calculation of MCA, which creates the MCA, and this MCA is at 1 square kilometer. So let me talk about one of the indices. Let's talk about demand index. So demand index is weighted sum of normalized demographic data and social productive use. What we do is the formula inverts percentage of people who live below poverty to provide a number of people who live above poverty, which can be used as a proxy to identify the people which can pay, because purchasing power becomes important there. Then we use the proximity to the social and productive uses like schools, hospitals, mines, that so that higher values highlight the area closer to potential demand. We also use nightlight data to identify the areas where there is already light and existing demand for electricity. The product of this demand index has a high value where people have ability to pay and are close to productive uses, and have current demand for electricity, which creates a map of existing and potential demand.
Okay, so basically you use the MCA to create a map of existing demand and potential demand, and also to map areas where there is ability to pay for and not ability to pay for. Okay.
Yes. So what happens when we talk about ability to pay and doesn't have ability to pay? That's where demand index and assistance need index take place of picture. Because if there's a place where there's already people have purchasing power and they are willing to pay for some services, energy entrepreneurs can come and put in the system there, and they both can have similar beneficial win-win relationship. But if the people do not have purchasing power, or they don't have ability to pay, and we know electricity is so important, it plays a very important role. Even 124 of SDGs target out of 169 are dependent on access to energy, like education, health. So there government can come and put in funds and give assistance to the area where assistance need is required. So that's why we have two different kinds of indices.
Okay, all right. That's very clear then. And the fact that it's deployed in poorer areas, we know that not everybody in those areas will be able to pay for energy. So then there's ability for government funded or needs funded the energy. So thank you for that. I think I'll just go right ahead into other questions. Okay, so can the data on EAE can it be accessed by the general public, or it's just the government and the individuals that consult you that can access it? So, for example, if it was deployed in Nigeria, for example, can I go to the EAE and then look for my area and what the EAE says about energy demands in my area? Can I do such?
Yes, the platform is open source, and the data and the information about the data is also provided on the metadata, including the data source and the license. So anybody can go and see the platform, and they can also go to the data source which has been given in the platform from the metadata and download the data for themselves.
Okay, so can any form of querying or analysis be done on there? For example, if they wanted to take the data sets themselves and see what the different indices combined can give them, can something like that be done? Or it's just going to be like go there and download the data sets there?
So the data which is in the app, they can be used directly by the users. There they can find out the different indices, change the weights, and change the proximity rasters and the multi criteria. Also, they can change on the fly and get the data set. But and then they can also find the points highest, top 100 locations or top 10 locations. But if they want to do any of the analysis which is not provided by Energy Access Explorer at the moment, then we would request them to download the data and then do it offline, because Energy Access Explorer is a limited tool with a clear set of goals, which is to help in effective decision making. And so we are trying to add more data set, more analysis in that, but it's a work in progress.
All right. That's perfectly understood. So can I know a bit more about how the data there on there now currently is being accessed? Like if you have things like hits per minute or hits per day, how is usage coming along? How is utilization coming along? Is there a way to track this?
So we have started tracking users fairly recently, and since then we have had over 2,000 returning users. So we don't track it in terms of per day or per month, and since the subscription, we also don't ask for any login or credentials. So we are just tracking if we are getting returning users, and that also is like fairly recently. We just started, I think, 4 or 5 months back.
Okay, okay. It sounds like a fair amount of users, and I'm sure that even after this episode, and when people try get to know more about the benefits, there'll be more and more and more returning users because it's actually a very cool platform. So, when launching this platform in different countries, do you use the same approach, or there are different and unique approaches to different countries?
Yeah, so I would say, we follow a similar approach in the sense like partnering with the local agencies, scoping for data and tools, introducing the tool to potential stakeholder users or data providers. We have launches and trainings, but all the countries vary, and they have unique backgrounds and details in the data partners. So there is a built-in web structure from all countries that benefit from the tools functionality, infrastructure, and CMS. So what we do is, even though the approach is similar, but each country is customized to its unique needs and data. And I should also mention here that EAE is a result of efforts of not only one person but a great, amazing team, and I'm like really glad to be a part of team. So it's like a similar approach, but customized according to the country and their needs and the data.
Yeah, all right, perfectly. So as an offshoot of that, could you talk us through a case study of one of the countries that you've deployed? Like how you were able to do all these things in that country? What was the reception like?
Yeah, so very recently, we have, for Kenya, we have done this, and that's, what we did was first we understood there was local partners, data, and engagement. We understood what is the energy in Kenya. Like if you talk about Kenya census, the grid powered home, they grew from 16% in 2005 to 50.4% in 2019, and the same happened with solar. Solar grew from 2% to 19%. So we mapped mapped all these data, and then then we talked to Kenya, like what is Kenya's county energy plan, and then we understood what they want to do. And then what we understood is like they are doing this, but the counties, they lack the necessity, capacity, and geospatial technology to develop these plans. So WRI's Energy Access Explorer, it uh, took it came into picture, and then we allowed them to uh, it was like it can help energy planners like what is the distribution and grid renewable network. And then this then tool can then tool supported them with integrated energy planning to optimize grid extension and distributed renewable energy strategies. And then what we did is now we are working with Narok County in Kenya to help them in integrated energy planning. So that so EAE is being used there as by energy planners to have inclusive and integrated energy planning in Kenya's Narok and Kitui Planty. So this is a data-driven integrated approach, which will be, and which once it is finalized, it will be then used to scale to new geographies with minimal resources. Yeah. So when we talked about Narok County, first with what was done is like we were thinking of, first thing was literature review, data collection and harmonization, which included collection of secondary data for the respective sectors, collection of primary data, and the synthesis of the data. Then we did resource assessment for biomass and other relevant renewable energy data. So we use spatially explicit data like solar, wind to produce maps. Then what we did is we produce a least cost electrification plan. The least cost electrification plan was based on onset modeling, which is also an open source tool. Then we use GIS based electricity consumption forecasting for that. Then we design different scenarios on different electricity consumption level and technology costing. And then again we did the least cost electrification analysis, which and then maps were provided to the county energy planning. Then we will integrate collected geospatial data into energy access explorer through our customized system CMS. Then it is enhancement of web infrastructure and automated data processing and web maintenance. And then once the whole thing is done, we'll be compiling the integrated energy plans with the results, and then it would be coordinated. It would be coordinated and given to the different thing, and it would be disseminated to the county government for adoption. And then there is training.
Oh yeah, there's training, definitely. Training of the people and stakeholders that will be involved in using it. Of course. Thank you so much for that detail. I didn't even expect that level of detail. Thank you so much for that, for being so open. And also, one, I think I'll just round up now and say that, I wanted to talk about EAE and clean energy adoption in African or sub-Saharan African countries. I understand that your work involves mapping energy supply and demand, and you also work with clean energy providers. Clean energy is something that a lot of countries and parastatals are going more into in this green age. What would you say the atmosphere is around renewable energy uptake in sub-Saharan African countries? Because for the fact that we have a lot of issues with energy supply, we have a lot of sunlight and a lot of wind energy here. Renewable energy could really help us solve most of these our energy problems. So as per the potential use of renewable energy and the actual uptake, what do you think disparity there is?
So, renewable energy uptake across countries varies due to different policies, energy sources, and financing. The biggest barrier is, we would say, is financing, since the countries tend to go for more affordable solution to meet its energy demands, as the main concern is usually the low energy rates in Africa. Right. However, the potential for renewable energy is very high due to hydro, wind, and solar potential in many countries. Equally, a lot of awareness is being created on the environment, economic, and health benefits of renewable energy. Solar is gaining popularity as an alternative source of energy due to its relative affordability in the recent years as compared to other energy sources. And many households, what happens is like in some cases it's cheaper to have a standalone off-grid connection to the households and have a rechargeable solar lantern. So, SSA countries generally offer a unique mix of potential market for renewable energy due to largely low access rates and high potential for renewable energy system. But financing options is something which is, needs to be have a little bit focus, especially a focus on power users effectiveness, so that there is a long term sustainability.
Okay, so from what I understand by that, but renewable energy use basically is coming up in the environment on a local level now. Like you said, renewable energy lamps and off-grid systems for individual households. That's really what's gaining ground here. And I see, I'm assuming that it's the same for most other sub-Saharan African countries. So I just wanted to hear your own view on that, and it basically confirms it. So thank you so much for that. Then the last question I would like to ask now is concerning investors and private investors into the renewable energy market in Africa. So maybe you could want to elaborate on the fact that there is significant uptake in renewable energy investment. So the EAE can help investors identify areas where their investment can make the most impact in supporting local economies and helping local communities while making significant ROI. And now I took this from your a document for EAE. Could you elaborate a bit on this quote?
Right. So this is where when we were talking about the demand index and assistance need index, it comes into picture. So suppose a renewable energy company which wants to go and put a say solar lighting, and they know that there is a demand there and people have purchasing power, so they can put it in a place where people have purchasing power, where people would be willing to pay some kind of monthly rental, or an EMI kind of a thing, so that they also get the benefit. The company is not in the loss and the people are also getting benefit, and this then helps in economic development. This becomes more important when energy is being used for livelihood. Say if they are putting your freezers or chillers, and for dehusking, so that the communities also gain from energy, and the investors also gain from their investment, because the communities are willing to pay them for the investment.
Okay, perfect then. So I think I really want to add a bit more about yourself, because we've really been talking about energy and energy. What inspires you about the EAE as a whole? What inspires you from a personal point of view?
I mean, that's actually a great question. So, EAE, I mean, it's like, it's a very good tool. And before joining WRI, I was working in, so I have worked on geovisualization and data analysis for health sector. But it was only on health, to identify how people are coming, what is a hotspot. But we have never thought from the energy perspective. And coming to health, WRI, and then working on working on the different data and understanding different indicators, and actually going on the field, I did realize how blessed we are not to be thinking about energy. And a simple thing, as a girl doesn't have can't go to school after she starts menstruating, because there is no clean toilet, which is again because there is no electricity. They can't have access to water, so her education gets stopped there, and it was like really difficult. And then COVID came, and we again realized what is the importance of vaccines, what is the importance of electricity. So, and there was a UNDESA report which says if there is no electricity in the schools, then there's a higher dropout rate. So all these things made me more empathetic, and made me realize that how important it is that energy, it should be reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy. Having energy access is important, but if a person is not able to pay for it, then it really doesn't make sense. That's why affordability and reliability mix is, it's very important. So I'm very glad with the team I'm working and on the work we are doing. So it's like super cool.
It's super cool, definitely. That's super cool. And thank you so much, Akansha and the team at WRI for the EAE, which is actually a blessing to energy planning and energy needs assessment in this part of the world. And thank you so much. We hope to see more uptake of the platform from now on. And, maybe one of these days we could get back together and talk about the successes that he has brought. So thank you so much, Akanshai.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. I hope you've had as amazing a time as I have bringing this to you. If you did, remember to subscribe on any platform you get your podcast from so you get notified every time a new episode drops. Also, we'd love to hear from you. So if you have any comments, requests, or suggestions, shoot us an email at gspatially@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at Geospatially. We are also on LinkedIn as Geospatially Africa Podcast. So we look forward to hearing from you. Bye.